The Pew Research Center reports that as of 2018, 66% of Americans said they supported legalizing marijuana, up from 44% in 2009 and 12% in 1969. Meanwhile, an overwhelming majority of U.S. adults, 91%, say marijuana should be legal. 59% of U.S. adults say it should be legal for medical and recreational use. 32% say it should be legal for just medical purposes, and fewer than 1 in 10 prefer to keep marijuana legal in all circumstances. So what is preventing the legalization of marijuana? To answer this question, we must first look at the past and see why it became illegal in the first place. In 1970, Republican President Richard Nixon, who was rumored to be backed by big business alcohol companies, passed the Controlled Substances Act prohibiting the cultivation, processing, distribution, and use of marijuana. Additionally, the law included the classification of drugs in which the Drug Enforcement Administration classified marijuana as a Schedule I substance, a category reserved for drugs such as heroin and LSD that are considered highly addictive with no acceptable medical use, meaning physicians cannot legally prescribe it. Finally, the law also created a National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse, and Nixon hand-selected members he hoped would spotlight the drug's dangers. However, after 2 years of study, the commission concluded that marijuana did not seriously impair health, lead to harder drugs, or turn users into criminals. Nixon, who had declared a war on drugs in 1971, rejected the commission's conclusions. By the early 1970s, an increased number of cancer patients were telling doctors that marijuana was helping with chemotherapy's side effects, and in May 1972, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which had been founded 2 years earlier, petitioned for federal government to reschedule marijuana in order to make the drug available for medical applications. The government rejected the petition and repeatedly defied court orders to hold public hearings. Fast forward back to the present, and still several roadblocks remain before medical and recreational marijuana can be legalized. The federal government still classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance, meaning that cannabis is illegal, has no acceptable medical value, and has a high potential for abuse. Experts say not enough high-quality studies exist exploring marijuana's impact on the body to put the debate about marijuana's health benefits to rest. Research is limited, leaving policymakers, healthcare professionals, and patients without the evidence they need to make sound decisions regarding the use of cannabis. Officially rescheduling the drug, which the World Health Organization recommended in January of 2018, will require a large-scale review process and presentation of scientific evidence on the drug's medical benefits. However, such evidence is difficult to provide without federal backing because the only legally available marijuana for scientific study in the United States is raised on a 12-acre farm at the University of Mississippi, with access strictly controlled by the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. Caught in the middle are doctors who worry because each state law allowing doctors to recommend but not prescribe marijuana is unique, that they can land in legal trouble if they discuss marijuana with patients. Meanwhile, many states have stepped in and approved medical marijuana rather than wait for action by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, which relies on such research when approving drugs. This is the overarching problem. The marijuana legalization approval process is being conducted by unqualified politicians rather than scientists. Finally, even with many states approving medical marijuana, the use of marijuana for any purpose remains illegal under federal law, and those who open marijuana dispensaries are having trouble opening a bank account or getting bank loans. So the question marijuana legalization proponents must ask themselves is, how do they break this governmental barrier? In 2018, President Trump signed a law legalizing the production of hemp, a cousin of the marijuana plant and the source of CBD, a non-psychoactive ingredient with medical qualities. The law is expected to be a boom for the industry, which is already on track to hit $16 billion in sales by 2025. A growing body of non-governmental funded studies on medical marijuana and the economic opportunities derived from taxing the drug, legalizing hemp, and CBD products are resonating with politicians in both parties. Research shows some forms of marijuana, including a synthetic drug, help treat a few conditions, including chronic pain, stress, anxiety, inflammation, and chemotherapy-induced nausea. These findings are backed up by the story of Elizabeth Crew. In May 2016, Elizabeth was diagnosed with cancer in both breasts. She underwent 2 procedures, but just as her follow-up radiation treatments were winding down, she found her anxiety levels were rising. Between anxiety, insomnia, and chronic ankle pain from a previous injury, Crew decided she needed help. However, she's allergic to opioid-based painkillers and wanted to avoid any anti-anxiety drug she would have to take daily. So in February, Crew turned to marijuana. Now she applies the topical cream to her aching ankles and vapes marijuana when her anxiety is high and before bed when she can't sleep. It just brings me down a notch, Crew says. If I'm not feeling particularly on edge, I don't use it. Whereas if I had gotten a prescription for anti-anxiety medicine, I'd be on it all the time. Outside the research and medical benefits of marijuana, there are also economic benefits to legalizing the drug. Increased tax revenues, job growth, and investment opportunities are all powerful incentives to push for legalization. Since legalizing marijuana in 2014, Colorado has reported reaping nearly $1 billion in tax revenues from it, and the amount of money made from marijuana taxation has steadily increased over the years as the industry booms. Should marijuana become legal on a federal level, the benefits to the economy could be exceptional. A report from cannabis analytics company New Frontier suggests that federally legal pot could generate an additional $105.6 billion in federal tax revenues by 2025. The legalization of marijuana would also help create jobs. In California, the legalized marijuana sales have resulted in at least 81,000 additional direct, indirect, and induced jobs. If legally federalized, the marijuana industry could generate 1 million new jobs by 2025. Workers would be needed to farm, process, distribute, and sell marijuana-based products. Furthermore, there would be ample opportunities for secondary industries such as financing services and construction companies to profit off the industry, although not directly involved in its production and distribution. When considering the economic benefits of legal marijuana, it's important to think of the money that might be saved as well as the revenue that could be generated through such a process. A 2013 report by the American Civil Liberties Union found that the cost of federal marijuana enforcement at the time was approximately $3.6 billion per year. The more states that legalize cannabis, the lower the cost of enforcement. If marijuana were to be legalized on the national level, these costs would drop considerably. Furthermore, if marijuana was removed from the list of controlled substances, far fewer court cases involving the substance would go to trial, resulting in fewer incarcerations and in turn more money saved. According to the FBI, police officers in the United States still make more arrests for marijuana than for any other drug. Police officers make about 663,000 arrests for marijuana-related offenses in 2018, amounting to 40% of the 1.65 million total drug arrests in the U.S. that year. These figures include arrests for possessing, selling, and manufacturing each kind of drug. The one argument I acknowledge and concede is that there are legitimate concerns about marijuana's impact on adolescent brains. To this, I argue that much like alcohol, there should be a law requiring buying consumers of marijuana to be at least 21 years old. As states have moved to change their legal positions, the economic benefits of legalizing weed have already been apparent. Overall, legal marijuana could result in big profit for both state and federal governments, as well as the economy. For these reasons, I urge you to consider if legalizing marijuana is beneficial or not. Thank you.